It's been over a week since we have spoken about Mason McTavish and the trade update that was given to us via Sportsnet.ca. Well, ever since then, the Mason McTavish trade sweepstakes have gone down a very particular direction, which is the same direction in which we've been diving into the past few months. This guy has not been traded yet at the time of recording this audio, and heck, it's not even a guarantee that he will be traded. He still needs a contract at the time of me speaking into this microphone, but that can change as quickly as tomorrow morning. Who knows? Lo and behold, though, that does not change the fact that Mason McTavish, 22-year-old center out of Zurich in Switzerland, didn't realize he was born in Switzerland, man. Interesting. But it doesn't change the fact that he is a very valuable piece. He's young, he's talented, he's coming off of a 52-point year and 22 goals in 76 games played. Mason McTavish is a play driver, he is a heavy skater, he is a big body who can go out there and make things difficult for opponents. And as a 22-year-old top 6 caliber center, this is a guy who has been very coveted by various NHL franchises and fans. So, with all this in mind, with all the talk we have had about teams like the Canadiens, the Red Wings, the Canucks, and more, let's dive into Sports Illustrated's article posted earlier yesterday by Jacob Ponturi, talking about how 4 landing spots remain for Ducks RFA center. Are these the final 4 teams in on McTavish? As long as that is the case, a trade remains a possibility, and these organizations make the most sense as a landing spot for the Anaheim Ducks center. Haha, yes, we are going over the scoop, we are going over the gauntlet one more time, because Jacob Ponturi's recent piece goes out there and dives into it. Let's talk about how the Anaheim Ducks are stuck in a contractual negotiation with RFA Mason McTavish. The organization's former 3rd overall pick is in need of a new deal, but the progress made is very little. September has arrived, and with training camp now weeks away, the speculation is only ramping up surrounding the 22-year-old center. Finding confirmed info on the Ducks and McTavish's negotiations has proved challenging, with both sides keeping a lid on the details. What's clear is that time is running out, and a potential holdout is on the horizon. As long as that is the case, a trade remains a possibility, and these organizations make the most sense as a landing spot for McTavish. So, we are diving into the teams here. I don't think it's too hot of a take to say that the contract holdout situation with this guy is something we have come to expect out of Anaheim. I mean, they did similar things with Drysdale and Zegras a few years ago. What's in common with those two guys nowadays? Well, it's that they're both traded. They're both in Philadelphia with Rick Tocchet. I'm not saying necessarily Mason McTavish is going to do the same thing, but the point is both of those guys are no longer with this team. Players that Anaheim was very willing to drag out and not sign right away, in the exact same way they are doing with McTavish right now. Let's dive into the first of 4 teams that the article on Sports Illustrated talks about. The Boston Bruins want to return to the postseason after a disappointing 24-25. Acquiring a player like McTavish would be a huge addition for a lineup starved for offensive depth. The Bruins have a future number 1 center and recently drafted James Hagens, but having McTavish as the interim number 1 and eventual second-line pivot would rapidly speed up their rebuild. And I did not even consider the idea of Boston being involved in the McTavish sweepstakes, mostly because, I mean, we've seen out of Boston rumors about them and Pavel Zacha, rumors about them and Casey Mittelstadt. It's like, okay, they want to trade away these centers. Pavel Zacha was 2015 drafted, Mittelstadt was 2017, so these guys are from technically a decade ago. McTavish was drafted in 2021, so he's a lot younger than those other dudes, and of course he is on the up and up. And I'm just sitting here thinking, if you have James Hagens as your number 1 and McTavish as your number 2 long-term, that can be really dangerous, and I'm very disinterested in seeing any NHL team have that possibility terrorize the rest of the league to come. McTavish, of course, would be maybe a first-line caliber guy in Boston right now, maybe because this team does need a little bit of a boost and some youthful exuberance, but longer term, Hagens and McTavish sound like a great fit together, and stylistically, I do think that replacing a guy like Pavel Zacha with McTavish isn't that bad of a regression there. I still do think there's so much value that McTavish can bring, especially as he gets older, that this makes sense, in my opinion, when you think about it like that. Second team out of 4 that is written about here on this article, it's the Detroit Red Wings. The team most linked to the young center this summer is Detroit. They have an obvious need at the second-line center position, and they have salary cap space to utilize, making them an easy fit to see. Behind Captain Dylan Larkin, there is also a question mark hanging over the center position. Marco Kasper is expected to take on second-line duties, but McTavish is undoubtedly an immediate and long-term improvement. They have the assets to make it happen, and yet it feels like a no-brainer for the Wings to heavily pursue. They do have the assets, I would say, but the question is, would Stevie Y be interested in trading away an Axel Sandin Pellikka-like asset for Mason McTavish? We know the team needs right-handed defensemen, especially with Philip Broberg, my goodness. Especially with Moritz Seider, there you go, me getting my 2019 drafted defenseman mixed up. Especially with Mo Seider in the mix, McTavish can play second-line center better than Kasper right now. Long-term, I think it's probably a toss-up between who you would rather have. I do think that Kasper is very, very good, especially at a young age himself, so it's not like McTavish is always going to be better than Kasper, but having more good players is better than none, especially ones that can project into the long term. The question is Stevie Y willing to pay the price? I'm not really too sure. Let's scroll down and read about the third team here on this article. It's the Montreal Canadiens, who have been previously linked to McTavish, and it makes a ton of sense. They need another top 6 center, and McTavish fits ideally into their rising youth movement. The big challenge for the Canadiens in this hypothetical is extending McTavish. Puckpedia projects them to be nearly $6 million over the salary cap as September begins, making an extension for McTavish incredibly difficult to accommodate. Well, article, Jacob Honduri and Sports Illustrated, that's why everybody's been talking about Montreal trading away Carey Price and his $10.5 million AAV salary. Of course, spending $10 million something on Carey Price and then trading that contract away won't free up the necessary money to sign on Mason McTavish in full, but it does give you some leeway. If you make a trade with Carey Price to free up the money, you send him to San Jose, and then you make another trade with Anaheim, you send over some big moneyed asset like a Josh Anderson or something for a guy like McTavish, then all of a sudden your cap problems become a lot easier to navigate. That is just one hypothetical example, but that is a contradiction to what is written about here, even though Montreal is listed as a Final Four team. And then finally, the article writes about the Vancouver Canucks. Panturi writes here, I foresee McTavish heading to the Eastern Conference in a potential trade, but the Canucks are the team in the West to watch. Like the other teams on this list, they need a reliable and productive second-line center, and McTavish would be a tidy solution in Vancouver. The list of suitors for the 22-year-old center has to be long, but these 4 are the most sensible landing spots. Coming off a 22-goal and 52-point campaign, McTavish is entering the next phase of his offensive production. The right team can capitalize and have a still rising top-of-the-lineup forward before the 25-26 season begins. So, do you agree with Panturi's write-up here that the Red Wings, the Bruins, the Canadiens, and the Vancouver Canucks can be seen as the final 4 teams for Mason McTavish in a trade for his services? If you're a fan of either of these teams, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. The article is also going to be linked down there as well for your reading pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on, and bye.